All right, man. So this is rad for me because, man, we got the dream team. Like, if I'd connected with you 3 years ago, I'd be retired by now. I'd have more enough money, and I probably would have been smart enough to have kept a lot more of it. But, you know, you got to buy a lot of black T-shirts, and those add up. So we have some really amazing, great people with us today. We're talking about brand building, making a ton of money, going out on your own, all it takes. We have my good friend Andrew Cordle. We have Brian Hawkins, and we have Jessie Rodriguez, the house flipping guru, the tiny house movement master, who's going to talk about that, and people are wild about that. And of course, my good friend Brian, Andrew, going around, I've known for years and have been to some of your seminars on wealth building, brand building, real estate. I know you've done over $100 million in real estate platforms.
Yeah, platform sales.
Right? You are the man who has sat down with all of the legends and success stories. Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, Josh Altman, the gazillionaire real estate guy from $1 Million Listing. Josh was probably like, he said gazillion, right? Good,
he
you
said
got it
gazillion.
Right. Okay, I want to make sure you got the G right, because billion's not enough.
Yeah, not a T or B.
So we're going to jump all around because all three of you guys are some of the most accomplished people that I could be around, and I'm excited about that. So let's kind of dive right in and jump in about what it really takes, because this is the question that we all get hit up with a lot, is to build your own brand, to market yourself, to be successful, setting yourself up for success. A lot of people are great setting other people up for success. How do people set themselves up for success, which you three are great examples of, and I'm picking up more from you. Why don't you start out, Andrew?
Setting yourself up for success, and I'm going to talk about from the branding standpoint. I think when I look at it from a brand standpoint, the thing that separates brands from businesses, which are, in my opinion, are two different things. A lot of people can run a business, and then you have another thing that's a brand, and those are not exactly the same thing. And most people get stuck on, and it's fine to get stuck on it, it's not the end of the world, but you get stuck on running a business versus building a brand. And if you look at some of the greatest brands that ever existed and that are out there, as your Coca-Colas and so forth, those are massive brands. And so in our day and age today that we live in, especially like in the hub right here in LA in your office, right? You're in the hub of like brand building, influencers, social media, like that are exploding. And now if you look at the people that are out there, how many millennials are out there right now trying to make a brand or get paid for being themselves, if you will? It's like it's the newest job that's out there. Like, you know,
the influencers.
Yes. You know, kids used to say, I want to be a fireman, I want to be a whatever it is. And now it's like, oh, I want to be an influencer. I want to be, and they'll name different names that are out there.
YouTube star.
Yeah. But I think the main thing you just got to understand is like, understand there's a difference between running a business and running a brand. Once you understand that there's a difference there, I think one of the very first things you have to do in building a successful brand, there's a lot of steps to it, but your brand has to create a feeling. If your brand does not create a feeling, it's going to be impossible to attract people towards you. So every great brand that's ever been created, they all have a feeling. And there's all this kind of brand association stuff that I could get into with you, but brands have a feeling and they own a word. Normally, like if you take Coca-Cola, for example, Coca-Cola owns the word enjoyment. And so it just means that anytime you think of the word enjoyment, Coca-Cola wants you to think about them. And they will then, once you know what your feeling is that you're trying to create, which is just for the audience's sake, me and Brian were having this conversation just like a week ago about my own brand. Dude, it's super hard to nail that down. It is super hard to nail down what is that feeling. But once you can know what that feeling is, then all your marketing and advertising should be driving to that feeling that you're trying to associate with. And when you watch great brands, that's what they do. They create a feeling about their brand, and then all marketing, videos, podcasts, YouTube shows, whatever they're going to do, then all drives to that feeling or that experience that they're providing for their customer.
Well, and I think, Andrew, to find your feeling, and tell me if you agree with this, it's authenticity.
Yeah. Well, that's what it starts with, for sure.
I mean, it's like you have everybody who because you follow somebody on social media, go, I want to go do that.
Yeah, right.
And they pretend to be that. I mean, you know how many people on social media I've seen that don't even flip houses, but want to do, the videos like they do. Yeah. And then you have people like myself and many of us here who do flip houses.
Yep.
You know, it's like I have so many people now that find me from HGTV and they, I love your show, and which is really cool, and I love the compliment. But I always like, how'd you get the show? And I'm like, because I was a flipper.
Right.
because I really did it. Like, to be on TV is actually very difficult. Like, there's a process to it. I have so much respect for acting and how hard that is.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I was the best on television.
Right.
Because
sure.
I was more.
Can you repeat that, please?
I'm not the best on television. HGTV. You know what it was? It was because, dude, I was a flipper. I went there with this attitude of like, I'm here to fix this house and sell it and make money.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't care about the capturing of the moment. Right. Which I think I failed a little bit, you know, in those first couple years by not realizing the opportunity that was there. So I think I had this authenticity, but then didn't have the second part, which is actually like, you got to have a team and have a plan to try to build that brand. And I didn't have that in the beginning. And it took a while to kind of find that person in myself, which I think is important.
But I think in fairness to yourself, because I've watched your show, for everyone watching, it's Vintage Flip. It's a great show. You can still watch it if you didn't pick up on any of Jesse's plugs. He only had 5 of them the first 2 sentences.
How to build a brand 101.
Go on Hulu.
For sure. but that's a big part of it, is don't be afraid to sell number one, which is you. I mean, and if you're not willing to invest in yourself and
that's a great point.
Bet on yourself, then why should anyone else? So, you know, because again, a big message of today, that people that we're speaking with, is not how do they go out and build the next Coca-Cola. It's how do they kind of do what the 4 of us have done, which is really build your own brand. And you know, I love what you're saying about authenticity. And as soon as you said that, everyone's head here was popping up, and I'm, you know, myself as well. But I saw the heads because, you know, it's. I have friends who are realtors. And a bunch of people used to come up at a gym. I literally stopped working out at a certain gym years ago because it was depressing, in the sense that you would see the same several people who were realtors wandering around. There were no rush to go anywhere. And sometimes you'd feel the need to, when they say, how you doing? You'd have to say, fine, how are you? How's things going? Like, you're just asking to be courteous. And here's what you'd get. And we were like, if we were in the hottest real estate market in history, we'd go, oh, the market's so hot right now, there's no inventory. Can't sell anything because the market's so hot, everything goes like that. Then if the market hit a lull and was slow, hey man, how's it going? Oh, market's in the toilet. You can't sell anything. And at this, so it's like heads I win, tails you lose. That is the mentality. And I'm not picking on any specific realtors, but I'm saying that like in anything in the world, everything that you do, you have the vast core people do not have that mentality, which is, you know, find a way to win. And part of that starts with authenticity. So look, I think you came out ahead of the game. If what you're saying is that your biggest problem that you fought yourself for, maybe why the show didn't take off is maybe the way you wanted to, is because you were so real and so genuinely authentic. I think you made the right decision. So HGTV, please take them back. Come on. We start a campaign.
You were already doing what you were doing anyway, right?
Exactly.
Like, you didn't have to go recreate yourself or try to make something up. It was already who you were, and it happened to fit really well with that. Like, one of the things I love about building a brand, whether it's for me or for anybody else, is finding a way to make yourself irreplaceable. That brand itself, no matter what niche that's in, if you could find a way to capture that emotion, like what Drew was talking about, if you can capture an emotion for people, they're there for life. I mean, tiny homes, people that are into tiny homes, they're down that rabbit hole.
Dude,
like, there's no, oh yeah, I heard about it. That's not a big deal. Like, if you're into tiny homes or you're thinking about living in one, renting one, seeing one, they do so much research because all that information is readily available.
But here's like, I'm glad you said that, because, you know, I was excited to come around and ask you this and jump in with it. One of the things that blows me away about you, and why I think it's such a relevant message, is when I said to a handful of people that we had someone from the tiny house movement. I didn't say who it was or anything else. Even mentioning tiny houses, my phone blew up. And you know, there's a lot of confusion out there because there's different TV shows. There's tiny house movement, which is yours. You have over 600,000 people following you on Instagram. You build over 500 tiny homes a year. And really what I'm leading up to with that is that it's this much bigger movement that's bigger than any one person. So instead of all of the people who texted me, and I love tiny homes, I'm going to live in one day, I want to do that, this is going to be so, some of them even like, oh, my dream is, or my big plan. None of them have, and most likely none of them ever will go beyond that phase of super excited, it's my dream. But you did. How?
I actually went down that road for necessity. Like, I got into building my first tiny home was with my brother-in-law, who was a general contractor. And construction was not my background. Like, I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was in sales and marketing and sold security systems for a decade. That was kind of what I knew. And he was building one for a friend out in the middle of nowhere that just had hunting property in Montana and just wanted a place to bug out to a couple times a year. That was it. I helped him because he was doing it by himself, put the flooring in, helped him basically frame everything on site on a trailer so it's on wheels. And we both started kind of looking around and doing research and found out nobody's building them. There's nowhere near the amount of people to fulfill the demand that's out there. And this was 8 years ago. And even then, there were so many people that were trying to get a tiny home that just couldn't find a way to get it. So we decided to literally quit our jobs, scare the heck out of our wives, and start building tiny homes. And to me, the best way to get the word out about that was social media. Like I needed to find a free way. I didn't have the marketing capital to go start advertising. So I started to do everything I could to find out how to build my own brand, which is what Tiny House Movement turned into. Like that was never the thought, was to turn this into, you know, a movement, right? Where I'm gathering people and showing them what tiny homes are for everybody else. It was absolutely just out of demand for me, for my business to survive, was to try to find a way to market that.
But talk about when we said a second ago, we were all nodding our heads about if you're not willing to bet on yourself or invest in yourself, and that's okay if it doesn't make you a bad person. There are people who are, you know, work for Google for their whole career, make a ton of money. They don't need to own it, you know. So but if you're watching this and you're saying, I'm watching because I want to build my own brand, you know, when you talk about that, you said the exact words are you quit your job, scared the heck out of your wife, and I mean that is a investment in you. That is a big bet on you, and you know, someone had said to me one time, you know, the greater the risk, the greater the reward. So that's why I have a ton of respect for people who do that, because, you know, you took that chance, and a lot of people who are super excited about, oh, I'm going to start flipping homes, or I'm going to go, you know, build this and do that. Well, you know, do it. And then so the thing is, how do we do it? And one of them is what you're saying right there is there's going to be a ripping the Band-Aid moment of where you say, I'm going to give up some security for the most part. I'm going to take some chances. I'm going to be vulnerable. I'm going to put myself out there, right? I mean, I know in your career too, I mean, there's no doubt about it. It's not been like the path was just laid out for you and said, hey, you didn't answer an ad on Craigslist that said, we want some guy that's going to come speak at these packed live events and get people up off the crowd roaring. Right. It didn't work that way.
No. So, you know, what you're talking about, I think of two thoughts to go through here is, I'm going to go back to the business and brand just illustration for a second. I was talking about earlier. One reason I think most people stay at a business versus creating that brand is because to create a business, you can kind of do that. I'll just use for illustration purposes a 9-to-5 concept. You kind of create it inside the normal day. You can kind of build a business that's an operational business that pays your bills. But once you get into, let's say, okay, I'm going to leave kind of that world and go deep into my brand, dude, that's a bottomless pit that you have no idea how deep that whole goal goes. And if you're not willing to go all the way into it, which is that sacrifice that you're talking about, it's why most people never make that extra jump over there, because there's a whole nother level above a business is the brand making, and just most people don't have that, what Brian was referring to, that ability to forsake all and go deep into it, not knowing what is that ROI. And that's where another thing that business is, Jesse, I know you're just, or I don't know if you just graduated or you're in college right now getting your
my MBA.
Yeah, from USC. And in business, it's all like spreadsheet driven, right? You get your MBA, it's all show me the chart, show me the ROI. If I make this investment, what do I get back on it, right? We all flip houses. We know that there's LTVs you got to be inside of. In a brand, again, where it stops people is there is no ROI. Good luck calculating that. There is no formula that says if I go build this brick wall right here behind you that you built that has custom painting on it, you go do all this stuff. Okay, now calculate for me the ROI. Well, you can't. There's no way to calculate that. And because of that, most business owners will never be able to pull the trigger onto the brand side, because their brand is, their mindset, if you will, is that MBA only, a spreadsheet, which I'm not knocking that. I mean, you should have that inside of this. That's what I love, Jesse. What are you at 52 right now and going back to college? I mean, it's incredible. And
it's like that Rodney Dangerfield movie, Back to School.
I just wanted to join a fraternity.
Old school. You go back to old school.
The guy's probably pulling up in like a chauffeur-driven vehicle, whatever. He sold gazillions of dollars in real estate.
You know what? So what's funny though is, you know how many people told me, why do you want to get an MBA? Like, you're already an entrepreneur, you have a business, and I felt that I was like, but I'm not perfect yet. Like my QuickBooks isn't the cleanest. I don't necessarily understand finance to the fullest, and if I want to go to that next level, I wanted to do that. So I flipped that to everyone else that I know that already has a degree, and they're trying to go to the entrepreneur side. It's the same concept, right? Like, take the chance. You know, I'm investing a lot of money to USC. Is it really going to pay off and do something? I don't know. but damn, I feel proud of myself.
Right.
You know, I've seen what you've done, Drew, Andrew, with like the sets and stuff that you've built and all the podcasts that you're running. Drew, what you're doing, right? Like the investment in sitting in this little room, like you didn't know where this was going to go. Right, you didn't know this was going to lead to, you know, the podcast interview with Brian Spears, right, and doing that kind of stuff. I mean, like,
exactly.
But you just had an idea, dude, and it could have went nowhere, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, I think I just want to see more people freaking try.
Yeah.
Like, actually freaking do it, man. And it's going to take a little while. And there's never been a better time that you can actually monetize your brand. If you go with another company, they own you.
Yeah.
But on social media, you own you.
Yeah.
Create your content, push your damn business, be passionate, be excited, like, and then things will, I mean, there's a little bit of luck involved in anything, right? It's the right timing, it's the right people around you, it's the right support system. There's a whole lot of naysayers that we all have in our lives. That's a natural thing too. Guess what? That's okay. I'm driven by when someone thinks I can't do something.
I love that. I love that. To say that too, it fires me up. Tell me I can't do it, I'm going to do it no matter what. And you know, you hit on about 5 different things that I think I probably, you know, we'll throw out a few of them, and then we can chat on it. Is that I think are critical for anyone who is thinking about going out on their own, or if someone's out on their own and maybe they are just kind of hitting a little bit of a wall and need to get over that hump for a little bit. Is you mentioned passion, which is number one critical, and that organicness, which is that you never fully know which way something's going to entirely go, and you have to be okay with that. And I know some people that are just too rigid not to be, and that's okay, meaning that someone who's an engineer, and I'm not making fun of engineers in any way, they're wonderful people, the world would be a worse place without them, but most people who have an engineering mind and engineering outset, some of them become inventors, but a lot of them are working, you know, and making great livings at a Facebook or an Apple. They're not the Steve Jobs or Tim Cook out on stage handing off the iPhone or the new iPad. They're the ones behind the scenes, and that's great. That's what's right for them. But you need to be able to flow and pivot from the highest to the lowest level. I mean, Steve Jobs was famous for days before his biggest unveils. Oftentimes, they did not have the bugs worked out of those products. And his famous stories of the lead engineers coming and saying, Steve, great news. Of the 25 things you said we must fix by tomorrow's big launch, we solved 24 of them. And he responded to his lead engineer, that's great news. Now you only have one more to fix by tomorrow. I'm sure you will, you know, and so that's that mentality of pivoting. So if you take a pause on a reality TV show, you go get your master's. If one thing is going this path and all of a sudden there's a wall there, but this road opens up, you hit the gas and go. So, you know, I love that part of it. You guys have all experienced that, obviously.
Man, I was like, when I first got started with that and trying to market or getting into the social media side of it, like I used to think to myself, like all these people that have huge followings, how the heck did they get there? How did they build their brand themselves? And then I quickly realized when everybody started, no one had any idea what they were doing. Everyone was in the same boat, but they were dumb enough, right? Like they were crazy enough to just keep going down that road no matter what everybody else said. Yeah. Because you always have people tell you that you're crazy or what you're doing is different or you shouldn't do that or you're wasting your time. You're never going to make money with that, whatever their excuse is, because that's what fits inside their head. Yeah. But if you can keep and kind of find a way, to me, that's why I really love what Drew was talking about on the emotional aspect. If you can keep it emotional within yourself, right? Like if it is something that makes sense to you and you're passionate about that, it doesn't matter what anybody else says. No matter what. I don't care what anybody else says. It makes sense in my head. And I listen to my own crazy voice in my head and I'm going to keep going down that road. Yeah. Because you're definitely going to fail at some point. There will come times that it won't pan out the way you wanted it to. But if you can keep pushing forward, it will eventually get there.
But let me ask you guys this. You know, is failing a bad thing? I'm curious. Like what you...
Not at all.
God, no. I mean, it's one of the... You know, what's funny is like I interview all these different people. My show is all about interviewing successful people, right? And like clockwork, I've interviewed both of these guys right here, Jessie and Brian. And like clockwork, when you find a successful person, what they talk to you about is not their success. Like when they're explaining to you how they became successful, it's not like, oh, here's these 5 secret things that you have to go do. Dude, that's not what they're telling you. What they're referring back to is always what they learned from their failures, like clockwork. And when you find any successful person, they immediately start driving back to, and they may not say it in the words of, well, when I failed, here's what I learned. But what they're teaching you is what they learned inside of that failure. So failure is one of the greatest teachers that's ever existed on planet Earth if you use it as a teacher. most entrepreneurs, we've all seen them in our lives. Most entrepreneurs love you to death, but and this is another great point here, Drew, is you're either in this world of brand or in business, you either get all the way in with both of your feet and you go what you're just talking about. You are just all freaking in this thing. If not, when you see these people, Jessie, that are trying to flip a house, like, I have this idea, I'm gonna go flip this house, and they kind of put their foot into the water, if you will. Dude, that person's never going to go be able to flip that house, because there's guys like Jessie who are going to do 1,000 of them that are moving way too fast. Business already is explosive in speed, and those people get just blown by constantly because they're not doing what we're talking about. They're just wading into it and saying, like the engineer brain, well, let me just see if I do this, what will happen? If I do this, I bet I can become successful. And it's like, no. You're going to be successful, jump in both feet. Have that sacrifice, have that drive, that passion, and get all in it, because if not, good luck, man. Yeah. Good luck out flipping Jessie where he's at right now. Good luck out doing tiny houses with Brian.
I say to people all the time, it's funny. And again, we didn't speak about this stuff before, so these aren't loaded questions.
No, I have no idea.
But I would bet anything, and I would have, that when I asked that question about is failing a bad thing, and I would have bet anything that you guys were going to say absolutely not. It's a good thing. And here's the reality of it. And I say this to people all the time. I say it here at the agency. I say it to our own team. I say it in front of new brands or partners that we're working with, because I want to set the table in a fair and honest way, that if you haven't failed at enough things, it means you haven't tried enough stuff. You haven't pushed it hard enough. If you're happy and thrilled with the first thing, the second thing, the 14th thing, and I'm not saying that paralysis by analysis or be afraid to make a decision. I'm saying that on the larger level of all of the different things to keep trying, and really everybody's going to fail. The most successful people have the most failures. Edison, Elon Musk, you look across the board, and even in our industry. But the difference really is that the people who get up the quickest and dust off the fastest, and not just wallow in it, but learn from it. And I love the analogy that I've heard it many times in the past, fail, F-A-I-L. Think of it, first attempt in learning. You know, and we've taught ourselves in society, and we teach people that failing is such a bad thing. It's a curse word. It's not, man. It's the best thing in the world, because that is what teaches you the yellow brick road to where you need to go. And that's, you know, what you guys do on a regular basis.
Well, if I jump in real quick, this is what I'm going to go on a political thing here. Okay. Or not super political, but politically incorrect thing, if that's good with you guys. To me, I
got nervous for a second.
This is my issue with the participation trophy crap that's out there.
Whoa, you're going there.
Yeah, because what you're talking about is so freaking relevant into life, into just life in general, but it also plays into business. Right. When we all played whatever it was, baseball, soccer, as kids, little league, whatever it was, part of playing that game is learning to lose, and learn to lose as a winner. Right, you can lose as a loser, or you can lose as a winner, and that's right. And I am a winner by nature. Like I it doesn't matter what I do. We went and played pickleball a couple days ago, and dude, I'm like all in. I want the paddles, the bag. I am there.
I got smoked by 12-year-old, by the way.
I'm freaking there to win. You know what I mean?
Win or look good, because that sounded like a bunch of cool gear.
Either way. Part of winning is looking good, Jesse.
That's right. The newest cleats. Yeah. The newest bat.
Oh yeah, the Griffey cleats back in the day.
The reason he's trying to throw you off is because he's like, am I going to have to give back my trophy to HGTV for participating in the flip shows?
That's right. But you know, when you talk about failure, right? I mean, think about what we learned and was kind of developed as kids, of learning through those failures, learning on a little league team of you lost, and then how did you deal with that? And those that succeeded, in my opinion, are guys or girls that when they lose, they figure out, like, dude, what did I do wrong? What was the thing? I know it's a team sport, but I'm not here to judge. I'm here to judge myself right now. Where can I find that thing that I could do better and build? It's actually how I became partners of $1 billion company, is that one principle right there. I became partners of $1 billion company without investing in it, off of that one freaking principle right there, of always looking internally and never looking externally for the reason of failure that I would have in certain weeks or whatever. So it's my little rant, if you will, of what's wrong with participation trophies, because you're not allowing that kid to develop. You're not allowing that kid to learn from that failure.
Well, one thing I was going to touch on Drew, and the original question about failure is, you know, I look for failures even in the wins, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
I might take a flip and go like, oh, I did okay on that. I made 20 grand, and then I look back and I go, but I did this wrong and this wrong and this wrong. I could have made 30 grand.
Yeah.
Like, be on your contractor a little bit harder, right? Or pay more attention to the numbers and things like that. Timelines, right? Like, so for every business that's out there, it's the same exact thing. Because if you get lost in like, I'm winning, it's like, no, you had a whole bunch of little missteps in there that you stop paying attention to. And then the big loss is going to come. In 2008, where probably a lot of us probably got hit pretty hard in 7 and 8 when the market crashed. I know I went under, right? So I don't live to that level anymore of going under, but definitely like, when I'm powwowing with the team and we're doing a recap on it, we're like, hey, that was a great one. We did really good, but why did we overpay on this? Why did this happen? What happened? Why did we mismanage? Like, let's try to tweak those little things and get better every single time. So there's a failure, I think, even in the wins.
I think that's a great point, because what happens is too, why I love that you brought that up, is that when you lose, regardless of mentality, there's still going to be a little bit of a sting. Especially there should be, and you're competitive. And if you're not competitive, you shouldn't be setting out to do your own business. But when you win, you don't have that sting, and you don't have that emotion that can play in and jar your vision a little bit. So it is much more functional to look at the wins and celebrate and make sure everyone on the team feels good about that, but then also say, this is great. What are we going to do next time to improve even more? How do we take it to the next level? And that's a much more effective way, especially for people who are starting their own brands, building their own brands. And it's a great one to remind ourselves of. I'm glad that you brought that up.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're doing that, especially in today's social world, everybody's so afraid to post their failures, right? Like everything is about how you won, how much you won, what you're doing well. And I think as a society, it's easy to kind of look down that road and understand why we've gotten to the participation point, because everybody is just so enamored with the win versus learning the lessons that come through that failure.
So you don't have to worry about that, because I set the bar low. I mean, I just walk in and look at me, and it's,
obviously, man.
I mean, it makes it a lot easier. We were actually filming something on one of our reality shows that we were doing on with a tattooed minister, and we went by to an old courthouse where we were doing some stuff. We were about to set up and shoot, and our biggest concern was they were going to come out and ask us what time our case was being heard, or our probation officer. Was a trial. So, set the bar low. That's my advice there. But that's not a bad thing as well. I didn't want to cut you off, but I was going to say that just as far as social media goes, I don't have that problem of trying to look all that perfect and stuff, because that ship long ago sailed. As soon as you start tattooing your hands and your neck,
dude, I think we're way better off with that. One, people would be way less judgmental, right? Like they wouldn't make any assumptions based on how somebody looks, which we definitely need more of in this world. Is being a little more heartfelt with everybody.
I agree.
But finding a way to help other people see how your failures have brought you to where you are and how you kind of turn those into success. I think that's the next evolution we need with social media is showing what those failures really mean and how you turn those into a positive impact on your life versus just bragging about all the success that we've had in whatever we've done.
What would you say, I'm going a little bit more into the exact thing for a second, because I know how many messages we were getting, and a lot of people have this question for you. The people who are watching this and want to get into that tiny house movement, they're willing to do it. How does someone really get started? And maybe they don't have to quit their job and rip the Band-Aid as big as you did, but really someone who's hooked on it and wants to get into it beyond just surfing on the internet and being excited at night before they go to bed and go back to their day job.
It kind of depends on what you want to get into. If you want to be a builder, for example, definitely start with someone that's licensed that knows what they're doing. I would start there. I've literally seen tiny homes fall off their trailers on the way to a show. Like people will build it in their backyard because they've seen it on TV or they've seen it in a YouTube video or whatever, right? So they're just like, oh, I can build something on a trailer. Yeah. So you definitely need to start with a licensed contractor and build the right code. If you want to live in a tiny home, I would go rent one for 3 or 4 days. Understand what that feels like, because even if it's just 2 people and you're in 400 square feet or less, if you have a galley kitchen and there's only literally there's just 2 of you, there's no kids, there's no pets, there's no anything else in the house. Yeah. Figuring out how small that space really is and just getting from the living room to the kitchen or to the bathroom or to a loft space. Can you handle going up and down a ladder? Do you need stairs? Do you have any storage? Do you have, like where we live in Utah, you need something to replace your mudroom. Like you need a place for snow gear or shoes or winter coats or any of that stuff, right? Because when you see it on TV, you just see something that looks great, or it's on Pinterest or Instagram and it just looks phenomenal. But living in that is a whole nother experience. So I would say go find a rental near you. Yeah. Spend 2 or 3 nights in that bad boy, and then decide whether you can pare down and get rid of enough stuff to live in that full time.
There was a woman who did something funny recently on YouTube, and I just happened to catch it because my obsession has been the whole van life thing. Yeah. Now, I readily say that is an obsession that will probably be an obsession when they're burying me at my funeral that I won't have act on for a lot of different reasons. But I love it, and I look at the pimped out vans, and I'm like, I'm going to do that. And try. So this woman did this thing of like perception versus reality because they really wanted to try it. And a lot of it's in the execution. All of it's in the execution. But she's like, this is what we thought we'd be doing. And she showed a bunch of pictures all over the internet. And it's like from Joshua Tree and the Grand Canyon and the vistas and the gourmet meals that they're making in the morning. And they ended up like their first night, and they stopped and they parked in the parking lot of like a Denny's. And I guess Denny's is like one of the places or one of the restaurant chains that lets you park
let
there.
You do it.
Yeah.
And she's like, they're afraid that they're going to get robbed and ripped off from the other van people. The heater's broken. They can't fit. They're like this. They're like tossing and turning because they set the cameras up. She gets up in the morning. The coffee maker's not where she wants to like. And it's one of those ones where, you know, certainly those are the things that can scare you. But it does go down to that. You can't just look at someone can't just look at this and say, I'm going to do what Brian Hawkins did. It can't be that hard. Look, this guy, he builds 500 tiny homes a year. And
you can really walk straight.
Yeah. How tough can this be? You know, he's just wearing a hoodie and, him and the other guy on the end look like they're both Uber drivers. No offense to Uber drivers. I have to stop saying that because I got emails from some Uber drivers who said they say that way too much, and I'm not disrespecting.
All right, we'll say Lyft.
Yeah.
Lyft drivers.
Yeah. So, but, you know, it is an interesting thing on that is that, you know, people who come to your seminars. Yeah. I mean, what is the difference that you see at your seminars? And I've been to your live events, and they're powerful. You're powerful. When you talk about the feel and the energy, you know, it takes a lot because people are coming in with their own preconceived notions that are often wrong, number one, years of mental baggage that isn't helpful. You have to unwind in an hour, sometimes less.
Right.
And then separately, what's the difference that you see of the people who come in and have great success, and you've had tons of those, and the people who come in and they get inspired for an hour or two, and the next day they forget all about it and are back at whatever their issue was in the first place that got them off the couch.
And Jesse could probably talk about this as well. You know, I would tell you that this is something that I skipped out on for years of my being an entrepreneur at the beginning because I thought it was so foo-foo, if that's the right word, or BS, which is this mental mindset of business. And I was like this anti mindset person when it came to business, and I'm just a producer, right? I just want to go out there, produce, do a house, flip a house, get it done, next house, flip a house, and to me it was like, if I'm gonna be successful, I have all this production and so forth. And I was literally like would go against, you know, I'll use the name because we all know him, like a Tony Robbins, thinking that's like, who cares about walking on fire? Let's go do action right now somewhere else. And I would tell you that those that are in that room that are looking at like what's the difference between success and those that don't succeed, those that come in with I call it a B12 shot, right? They show up, they get like a B12 shot of energy, they get inspired, and then poof, they're back down again. I would tell you that it's the mindset of that person, and one is developing that mind, that brain, to do what it should go do, and the other one is relying on someone else for the energy. They're relying on the next cool song on American Idol to inspire them. They're waiting for that next cool TikTok video that they cry on because it's the soldier coming home from war and they surprise their children, right? And they're like waiting for that thing to inspire them and motivate them. And it's just a B12 shot. Those that find success are those that are not looking for someone else to provide them the motivation. They provide the motivation themselves because they're constantly working on that brain, constantly working on that mindset. And for me, again, talking about mistakes, it was a mistake that I made for probably the first 7 to 10 years of my business, like just ignoring it, like, oh, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. Let's just go make money, we'll be fine. And the last 10 years of my business has been like all about, like, for me personally, I don't teach it, but for me personally, how do I increase that brain? How do I push that muscle higher and create the mindset that I'm looking for? And to me, to answer your question, is those two things right there.
I think it's really well said, and it makes sense when you do what you do, get the crowds up off their feet, and that you've done so well. One of the things that is always, and I get this, that you hear from realtors who are struggling or just starting out. Sure. The hardest mental barrier, I've never been a realtor, but I hear from people, is, look, you're working for free, basically. You're not getting paid. So, and I'm sure now, you're past that, obviously, and you can monetize it in your head a different way, but you have that that reality of you have people who are sitting open houses on weekend after weekend, and and unless they sell something, it really does feel to them, like they're not getting paid. What do you say to people about that? What's the mindset to not fall into that dangerous rut?
Yeah, so I've never met a salesperson who didn't make a sale if they actually worked. Like, if we really think about that.
So good.
Right? Like, and so when people come at me and they're like, oh man, I've been showing houses, doing open houses, I'm getting no results, right? And then I start to really analyze their day, and I'm like, well, you might have been in the office today, but you didn't work.
Yeah,
right?
not the same thing.
Working is picking up the phone and talking to people.
Yeah.
It's making contacts,
Yeah.
right? It's putting yourself out there. And yes, it's going to take 3 months, 4 months for you to get a transaction going, right? Because you got to show houses, then you got to write offers, then you open an escrow. But same thing in car sales, right? If anything you're doing. So I've never met someone who actually put in the action of waking up, right? Having a schedule for themselves, right? Having a morning routine.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not one of those people who's like, hey, you have to wake up at 4 a.m, work out by 5, journal and all the stuff that really does work. Because I have a lot of friends that do that stuff, but I've necessarily not done all those things. But I have my routine, right?
Yeah.
And for the next person, it's like, well, does your routine look like you wake up and the first thing you're thinking about is, what's my day going to look like? Well, how many appointments do I have? Oh, well, I don't have appointments. How do I get appointments? Well, let's start calling people. Let's reach out to our contacts, right? And if you do that day after day after day, you are going to see results. And that's the biggest thing is I think a lot of people quit before they ever started.
Well, and when you said something, it really was like what you're saying is, being somewhere isn't the same as showing up. And,
Exactly.
you say those exact words, so I'm going to coin that as my own quote going
I like that.
forward.
Write that.
And
Write that.
So I'm talking to our producers. Be there isn't the same as showing up. Put that under Drew Plotkin.
Drew Plotkin, as
Going
not seen on
forward,
TV.
as
I'd like
not
to see an
seen
Instagram post on
TV, Think and Ink and Launch Brands Incorporated. No, but it really isn't. And
Right.
what I love about this for me, honestly, is that you guys are saying so many things to the point that float around my own head from 25 years of doing this. And I'll give you an example that you reminded me of, and I hadn't thought of this in a while, is that when I first moved to California a million years ago, I've officially now lived in Cali longer than New Jersey. So I think they're taking away my citizenship at the great nation of New Jersey. I'm appealing that because I want to be dual passport and keep that. But I had 2 jobs. The first one was me and a buddy from high school. We lived in an apartment building for free because we managed it. So we got a job as man. I didn't know how to change a light bulb. Yeah. In fact, the very first light bulb they had me change, I broke it and it snapped off in it. So they took that off of me. And they said, all you need to do is bring the rent checks from here to here. Can you manage that? So it's okay. I mean, it doesn't mean you certainly wasn't overqualified. That was never a risk for me. And since we weren't paying rent, I got a job selling newspapers. And it still exists to this day. And I'll share the details so no one thinks it's BS. You can call them. You can look it up. It's on record. It's called the Investor's Business Daily. It was like a competitor to Wall Street Journal. And I started selling papers over the phone, newspapers over the phone. And I was making about $5,000 a week, often more. And this is going back 20 years ago. And I would probably work about 20 hours a week. And it took me about a month or 2 to figure out how to get into that rhythm. But nobody else was close. It blew it away. I'd never been involved in investments. I'd never been involved in the stock market. Nice. I didn't know anything about that. But what I did is the first day that I got there, I sat next to and listened to the top people in the room and observed everything they did. And then just as importantly, I went and observed I don't call people failures, not as human beings, but the people who were failing, who you knew wouldn't be there in a week or 2. And I wanted to watch and see what they were doing that wasn't working. And I was there for 18 months. And for 18 months, I was their top salesperson to the point where they actually changed the commission structure and said, we're not going to pay you that much anymore. It's too much. When I met a woman who became my wife, she actually made me drive her to the location, Marina Del Rey, wanted to meet the manager and see it was real big because she thought I was a drug dealer. And I didn't have tattoos then. So she wasn't profiling me, but literally she did not believe, and she would see these checks and she knew what time I was going to work, what time was, and I had it dialed in to like these 3 hours in the morning are the strongest. But one of the things that I would do, and this is where it sparked the thing, in my mind about showing up and being focused and how driven is, I would walk in the door. It would open at 6 a.m. I would always get there at about 5:45 because I wanted my focus. I didn't want to be running around to run to the bathroom right before. And I would not let myself use the bathroom until I closed my first sale of the day, because for me, mentally, I had to get off on the right foot. I had to be off on a winning day, a winning mindset, because I knew what it could be like to be a telemarketer on the phone getting no, rejection, and how easy it could go like this quickly. And people used to joke. They didn't know me, and my leg would be like this sometimes, because sometimes I wouldn't get that first sale real quickly. And I mean, I swear on my life, there were some near dribble incidents, and I never actually did, and I won't get into too much info. But and you know, some people might say you're freaking weird, and that's fine. I kind of am. But I mean, I have no issue with that. But meaning that was passion. That wasn't self-pain. That wasn't self-punishment. It was that I know that at the end of this week, my numbers are going to be as good or better than last week if I don't get up from this darn seat and take off this headset till I get that first deal, because being there is not the same as showing up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you half credit for that going forward.
And let's take it to the next step. I'm sure you didn't love doing that job. You didn't wake up every day and say, I want to be a telemarketer, you know, selling the paper at IBD.
No,
right?
I told my wife that I was a Hollywood stuntman when I met her, to be honest. I did not say, which was not true in any way, shape, or form.
You look like you could be, though.
Well, I used to fake limp. You know,
but like, let's talk about like, in today's day and age, people feel like the influencer world, where they want to build their brand, and it's like they want to do what they love. And it's like, I do what I love now. I didn't do what I loved 20 years ago. Right? Sometimes you got to put up with some shit to become who you are, so that you have the freedom to then choose the life you want to live and do the work you want to do, right? Like when I started in mortgages, or my first job was selling shoes in the Kmart shoe department. You know, I had my first job at 15 and a half. My dad would drop me off, right? I didn't want to sell shoes. I didn't want to work at bakers and fast food. I didn't but they were all stepping stones to eventually get you to where you're here. So for everybody that's listening, it's like, you want to build that brand, and building your brand isn't just about being cool.
Yeah.
You know, like Brian has a passion for tiny homes. He really loves it. That comes off, like the authenticity, the passion. You know, right now you might have to just suck it up and do what you're doing to get to that you know, that side gig that you have. That's where you can drive your passion, and then eventually it can become what replaces your main income source. But sometimes people jump too quick to you know, I know you have to rip off the Band-Aid, you have to go in, but be smart about it too, a little bit, right? Like work the dual career, double up on that money a little bit before you go all in, because you always take a step back a little bit when you start that next thing, and you have to be ready for that step back.
And what you learn from those experiences is what drives you. I mean, I can say to this day that what I learned during those 18 months as a telemarketer, and you're right, man, it would be brutal. Even you know, the hours that were less than most might expect for me to achieve that success, nobody wants to be hung up on 10, 15 times in an hour, and sometimes people are yelling at you for no reason. It's a terrible thing. But I will say this, I use those lessons that have been more impactful in my career starting an ad agency in LA, which really became what I say my grown-up life, and the commercials and the brands that we've been fortunate to partner and build. And when people say, how did you learn to direct? How did you learn to do this? All these things, I always go back and I say, because if I could sell someone a $400, $300 newspaper over the phone in one phone call without any visuals, never met him before in my life, and I had maybe 5 minutes to randomly interrupt someone's day and get them to take a credit card out of their pocket and give it to me just by the sound of my voice, man, when all of a sudden I had TV visuals and graphics to play with and a real visual product that people might want in their hands, that was like being a kid in a candy factory or whatever you call it. So all of those things that I learned were the foundation, and I can say that about because I've had a bunch of miserable jobs, and you know, again, it's what can you take? You don't have to wake up and say, I can't wait to telemarket today. You know, I can't wait to work the checkout line today. But what are you taking away from that? And there's no doubt in your career that those things, you know, what are some of your biggest failures, guys? Let's talk about that. That you can draw strength from as to how it led to your successes.
I'm going to let Brian go first because his list is long and deep when it comes to this.
It's a solid list.
He's the expert in
Are we talking about
topic.
like selling?
Let's just talk 20. Let's just talk 2020. Let's just talk 2020.
Was it his tiny house that fell off the trailer that he didn't allude to?
No, that was not mine. I would definitely not bring that up if that was mine. Dude, I've had so many freaking failures. Even in tiny homes themselves. Like I have homes that we have built in the beginning that we were super proud of, right? Like we put so much time and effort into this custom home. We delivered it to somebody on the other side of the country, and then they have a laundry list of things to nitpick at, right? Of something that's gone wrong or something broke while it's being transported because the home is moving just like an RV or anything else. Right. there's so much more that can go wrong than can go right when you're taking home across the country. The story I tell all the time on this, I had a delivery driver transporting a home from where we were just out Salt Lake City in Utah over to Cape Cod, and he broke into the home and slept in the home while he was driving out. So he drops the home off. Wow. The washer dryer pump unit's been tipped over. There's scratches all over the floor. He broke the Murphy bed, like he broke the lock off to get the bed down because it was up as a desk when we left with it. Just all kinds of crap went wrong, right? It cost us and we went out and took care of it. It cost us an extra $15,000. And at the time we were making about $18,000 on a home. So not only did we not make any money, we wind up losing a ton of money because we have to pay for our expenses to go out, pay for the expense to fix everything. All profit's gone, right? And as a small business, it's really hard to stomach that and to not just, the driver wouldn't pay for it. There was nothing we could do, right? Those kind of things happen all the time in that industry with building anything, right? Like there's so much that can go wrong. Even before that, man, like the job I left, talking about telemarketing, I sold security systems over the phone for 5 years. Like getting hung up on all day, every day is the norm. And you would have days that you don't sell anything. It happens, right? Like you could be there for 14 hours. Right. And I would go home, my wife, how's the day? Yeah, no, I mean, just didn't make any money today. No big deal. Like it's kind of how it goes, right? Failing is, it can be really easy to get wrapped up in all of your failures because that's what you remember, at least in my mind. Like I remember those things. I can recall the majority of dumb things that I do because they stand out. And the success is great because that's just kind of the culmination of everything, all the work and production that you put in. But the failure is what stands out because that's where I learned. Like that is the only way I can really move forward is figuring out, even like I love what Jessie said, like figuring out even the failures you have in your success, even the things that went well, you can make those little tweaks, right? Like I can figure out how to put that flooring in better so it's not going to squeak when somebody steps on it after 5 years or if they have a dog. Yeah. So I mean, as Drew said, man, that list can go on a long time for failures.
But also sometimes it's perspective and knowing when that you're so close that you don't even realize how close. And so an example the other day I thought was fascinating. Elon Musk is in the news all the time. I think everyone here, kind of follows him on social and finds some really fascinating things about him. I wasn't aware of this. I don't know if you guys saw this, but it was a fascinating news story that their profit and stock price through the roof and everything else is based not very much at all on the margin of the cars. It's actually quite low, and the vast majority of the margin and profits and numbers that are supporting their P&L, and it's not hidden, they disclose it in the filings, but I thought this was, to their credit, was that it has something to do with like they're selling their environmental credits.
The credits,
and I won't get into like
credits. Right. Yep.
And people can look it up and Google that story on Elon Musk if you haven't seen it. And explains the technical side of it. But I thought, like, I wasn't thinking, and I saw people, wow, he's a scammer, he's a fake. I'm like, he's freaking brilliant. He built the bit. Now I don't have a Tesla. I don't even know if I'd fit in one of them, so I'm not planning. There's not a promotion for Tesla or anything like that. But I really, give the guy that's exactly what inspires me about people when I say that's really brilliant, because they've built the machine, they've built this mammoth, and sometimes it's the tiniest but most critical pivot. You're so close to that finish line of greatness, and maybe you don't even realize it when you pull the plug. And if someone had said to him, when we talk about that need to pivot organically, when he started Tesla and went through that, now when you're at your peak, you're most successful, just know it's not going to be from the sale price of your cars. Would you like to keep going? And a real entrepreneur says, man, I'm going to figure out another way.
Talk about what a brand, too. Yeah. Tesla, I mean, he comes out with a flamethrower and sells them out in 5 minutes. He comes out with a tequila. Why the hell is he making a tequila? Because he can.
Right.
Because it's about creating a limited edition of anything, right?
It goes back to business versus brand.
Right? He is a brand.
If you're a business, that means you just sell cars.
That's right.
If he was a business, he would be selling cars. Electric cars, gas cars, diesel cars, he'd be selling cars.
That's right.
What Jesse's talking about right there is he's not a business, he's a brand. So when you're a brand, you're looking for two things: eyeballs and products. Is really that simple.
That's right.
And as a brand, because he has so many eyeballs on him that are not bought into Tesla, but are betting on him. They are betting on Elon. That is their investment. That is where they're putting their money, the stock. They're not putting the money on Tesla. They're putting it on Elon. That is a great example between a business and a brand. So when a brand like Elon says, hey, you know what? I got a crazy idea. I'm going to come up with a tequila. Yeah. People are like, I'll buy it. Yeah. Why?
I would have bought it.
Why? Because it's Elon Musk. He has a brand, not a business, right? Think about if Ford came out with a tequila. Who cares if Ford has a tequila? But if Elon Musk comes out with one, it has that intrigue because we follow the brand, not a business. It's emotional.
So let me ask you guys this question then. Among all the smart people at this table of super successful, who's the CEO of GM? Anyone? Who's the CEO?
No
of
one
GM?
knows.
No. Okay. GM sells millions, multiple millions more cars, vehicles, their total than Tesla.
Yep.
Everything else, but nobody among us has. I don't know the answer. I really don't.
No, give me Fords. I don't know.
Yeah, I was going to guess the guy's name is Ford. I just had it, but I don't even know if it is.
So, I don't think anymore. No.
Yeah, and I couldn't tell you at Chrysler either. Well, so when
Lee Iacocca. Oh, that was a long time ago.
A long time ago.
But it's like, that was one of those classic CEOs, right? So in history, you now know who he is. I just watched Ford versus Ferrari the other day, so that's all I do.
But we did commercials. We did a commercial for T-Mobile, a couple of years back, and I remember that John Leisure, who is the guy who had kind of the longer hair and he was wild and everything else, and I mean he really became that first face of that brand. He gave people something to identify with. It was his promise, his trust, his credibility, and the next thing you know, he was doing home cooker shows on Sunday. What's cooking or something with John Leisure on Sundays in his crock pot. The guy's the head of a mobile cell phone company. People care about data plans or whatever, but literally tons of people tuning in to see what this guy's cooking in his crock pot, because that is that brand.
Brand
look
versus
at
business.
Look at Tom Ford, right? The designer. He was the head of branding for Gucci for a long time. The other day, my wife and we have a Tom Ford book on the coffee table. Never opened it. She's going through it, and she's like, "Why is all this Gucci stuff in here?" Yeah. I'm like, because that's how he was from Gucci before he became Tom Ford independent. She's like, I didn't know that, right? But it's like now, smartest move on his part, because how many people probably loved Gucci but didn't realize he was a designer. He comes out, self-brands to his name. And now it's like, we're all wearing Tom Ford sunglasses and all this other stuff, right? It's because he tagged his name on it. And so many companies do that. Like I've heard, what's your take, Drew, on when you develop your company, should it be named after you?
That's a great
question. We got Tesla, right? But damn, I almost kind of wish it was called Elon now, right? Because I love Musk, right? You know what I mean? Like, it took a minute for me to realize it was based off of Nikola Tesla. You know,
I did this. Yeah, exactly. It's actually there's a reason he called it Tesla. You know what I mean? Like it's part of his brand. If you think big picture with Elon, it is literally why he named that company Tesla is part of his personal brand of what he believes in, right? Yeah. But if you look at, I did a study a while back because when I kind of was, I came from the background of speaking for other brands, right? Traveling for other brands. And when I went to go launch my own brand, I faced this question of like, dude, do I call it a company? Do I call it this? Do I call it, whatever it's going to be? Or do I call it myself? Which is a really tricky question. Me and you, Drew, were having this conversation in your office a while ago. It's like, man, it's hard to get up there and like talk about yourself. It is an awkward concept to get up and talk about yourself. And I did this research and started looking back, like, I had it in my brain that we were this first generation, if you will, that's coming out with, hey, let's the brand is us, it's me, right? But that's not true at all. Like I did this research and started going back to all these what we would call massive Fortune 500 businesses that we all at this table have already mentioned their names and lots of other ones. Dude, it was a guy's name. It's just that it was 100 years ago, and we don't really know who that guy's name is right now. Right. But like I could just start naming off stuff. Like you're like, oh yeah, that's a guy's name. Hershey.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the guy's name.
Disney.
Heinz. Yeah, that's the guy's
Disney.
name.
Yeah.
I mean, you could just start a Chrysler. You could just literally start naming off businesses. So my point is like when you go to name your a business, just don't have this. You're gonna struggle with this ego thing of like in pride if you don't really. And I think every good brand, every great brand is not trying to be the brand.
Right.
It's not like they're out there on this ego play. I know some of them are. That is their play. But I think the majority of brands are not trying to be. Brian, for example, Brian's not trying to be some egotistical tiny house house type of person. It's just, dude, that's his world. That's where he lives inside of.
He just slipped me a note that said, "Guru, please collect Andrew."
Yeah.
He said it's not tiny house person, it's tiny house guru. So
So close. Yeah, so
just
close.
letting you know.
Do you judge us if we don't live in a tiny house?
No, I don't live in a tiny house. I don't judge
20 of
somebody
those
for not
things,
living in a
man.
tiny house.
But I think what you're saying too is it comes back full circle. So what is the answer to that? The answer is what's authentic to you, what makes sense to you. For me, I've never put my name on something specific like my actual name, because most of, if not all of the ventures I've been involved with always involved a team of great people around me that I've been fortunate to have.
Absolutely.
I think the biggest thing that I've done right is surround myself with really smart people. And if I could be the dumbest guy in the room, I think I'm doing well. That's really been my approach with
You're
it.
crushing it, bro.
Yeah, I had that written down. And
The Sinister Sisters.
But
They wrote it down. They wrote it down for you.
yeah, there'd be a shoe flying at my head or something. No, but I think in that sense, where when a lot of the examples you gave, where it may make more sense is those are inventors. You know, when you think of Harley and Davidson, you know, they were partners on that. They invented it. When you think of Dyson, you know, you have an inventor to that end of it. And I like when there's a mystique about it, like even the name Tesla, which had a deep-rooted meaning that I guarantee you the majority of people who own Teslas don't really understand that it came from Nikola Tesla and what that meaning is. And that's fine. It doesn't need to. But I think if there is meaning to you, then it's authentic. And if you feel good about it, then it's authentic. For me, in the businesses that I've been in, it just would have been I don't know if it's self-grandizing, whatever it is, it would have been false. It would have been putting my name on it when in reality is, 25 people here touch everything. And that's one of the things I will say about building a brand, especially if you're building a brand that does require a team at any point, is number one, it goes back to Guy Wisnowski, who worked in so many Silicon Valley startups. He wrote a great book called The Art of the Start. And one of the things that really stuck with me from that was that A's always hire A's, or an A will hire an A plus, meaning if you think of the scale A, B, C, D, F, because an A player is someone who's confident. An A player is someone who is so secure and believes in themselves that they are not worried about bringing someone on who might replace them, or someone that the boss might think, oh, this person might get a bigger raise than me, or they are so confident in their own beliefs and what they contribute that they're always looking to build the strongest people. The problem is that when you bring on anything below an A to your team, they start to hire down. And again, this was from Art of Start by Guy Wisnowski, not from me, but I've watched it, followed it, and it's been one of the most critical rules that I followed that I would say has been a fail-safe for me, because whereas an A will always hire an A or someone even better, and I've had that. I have so many A's here who will say, so what do you think of that person you interviewed? Oh my God, they're so great. They're 10 times better than me at this. We have to hire them. Yeah. And I'll say they're not better than you at that because they could never sit across from me and say that, but let's hire them because they're going to be a great part of the team and try it out. But the problem is a B does not hire a B. A B hires a C because a B knows that there's room for improvement, that they just aren't that person. They're comfortable being a B. So they don't want to bring someone on who could possibly leapfrog them because they might bring on an A and then B gets shot out the door. And then obviously if you make a mistake and hire a C, not your intention, well, C's know that they are really average at best and they do not want competition. So those C's are going to hire D's. So the biggest thing I would say to people is, number one, is be really aware of not being intimidated about hiring someone that you think is even smarter than you or better than you at certain things. If they're not, then why are you hiring them to begin with? Yeah. Do it yourself and don't spend the money, number one. And number two, say no a lot more than you say yes. I think that's a big mistake that people make starting out. Part of it's trial and error. You have to go through it.
It's hard to do. It's hard to tell people no, right? You want to be a pleaser, I think, naturally. And I think now I say no a lot. And it's uncomfortable.
Or to opportunities is really what I'm saying. You look at homes probably that you walk away from that maybe you would have dove into because maybe you had this 100%. Underlying fear of, if I don't jump on this, I don't think it's right for me, but I don't want the other guy to get it and make a big profit and then I'll feel bad. Well, no, because that's ego talking. Yeah. It's either right for you or it's not. And I've done that. I've taken projects, I've accepted brands that weren't right for us. We weren't right for them over the years. And, you can have a soft landing, but it never is going to be a long-term thing. And really your longest relationships, your true partnerships are going to be when you say yes to the right person, the right brand, the right opportunities that say yes to you. It's got to be mutual. You want a good deal. You want a fair deal. If you're looking in life, my father used to say this. He never went to college, but he became a CEO of a public company. So he was very like grassroots, self-educated type. And I used to say, I'm going to get a great deal. And he would say, I don't want you to get great deals. It's never what I wish for you. He goes, I want you to get good deals and fair deals. He goes, because if you get a great deal, usually means someone else got a bad deal. Be very comfortable. Look for the good deals, the fair deals, and then just outwork, out-hustle, try harder. Let that be the balance. And I think people lose that. They look for the lottery ticket. There are no lottery tickets, I say that kind of as a starting to wrap up thought. I didn't realize it would be, but in that sense, because I know we've got about 5 minutes, but feel free to comment on that. And then I also want to ask each of you, what advice do you have? I kind of just shared mine without realizing I was going to do it, but what advice would you have for any entrepreneur that's thinking about being an entrepreneur that's having some success but is kind of stuck, wants to get to the next level? What are a couple of tangible action points each of you would give? We'll let Brian go first because Andrew was picking on you before, so now maybe you get to use his good one.
There it is.
You've read his books, you've been to a seminar. Take his top ones.
Man, for me, I would actually, collaboration is my favorite go-to. For anybody that's looking to me, your brand can typically be summed up in your social media presence right now, just because of where business is done. For me personally, you can find the majority of it on social media. So collaborating with the right people, owning who you are, who you really want to be, and being okay with that. Like for me, getting into tiny homes, everybody thought I was nuts and crazy and stupid, and nobody does that. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. But having your own vision in mind and then collaborating with people and talking about just what you said, Drew, like finding a fair deal, like finding a way to add value to somebody else, not trying to just, get that lottery ticket, get a free pass, go from 0 followers to 100,000 followers, whatever that looks like for you. But finding a way to add value to others and creating those relationships is how your brand is going to grow and how people get to know you as an Elon Musk. Yeah. We have never, ever in the history of humankind had more access to people that we want to talk to than now.
That's right.
Like tweeting at Elon or anybody else, right? Like any other celebrity or CEO or anyone you want to get to know, you can find a way to get a hold of them if you try hard enough.
Yep.
And that's never been the case before. So if you really want something, especially if it's on social media, if you really want something, put your head down, get to work, and get a hold of that right person.
Jesse, why don't you go, and then we'll give Andrew the last wrap up on that.
I think I'm always a planner, and I'm not an analytical person, but sometimes when I come to business, all of a sudden it comes out of me. I think you write it down. What do you want to do? Write it down, right? Then write down the 5 steps of what it's going to take, and that could be collaboration, reaching out to someone, doing research, starting to do social media posts. If you're still passionate about it 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, did you complete your list? That's the quickest way. I hate when someone comes up to me and says, hey, can you teach me how to flip? Can you tell me your secrets in flipping? Or what's one thing I need to know? I'm like, dude, you got to go do all the research before you ask me. Come at me and tell me that you've done this, 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 and this, and you just can't seem to get that last little bit. Then I will pour out all the secrets to you, because instead of you just pumping me for information, you did your own research. So write it down, right? Get your 5 steps that you need to do all that, and then just do it. Like freaking jump in. You are going to fail. You're going to suck. You're not going to be the best, and who cares? Stop worrying about everybody else and just freaking jump in. And if you love it and you're fired up, that's awesome. Like I'm notorious in my house for telling my wife about every big deal that's coming down the pipe that almost never comes down the pipe. Ever. You know how many times that she's like, oh really? You're gonna raise a bunch of capital? Okay, when's it coming, honey? Right? And I'm joshing myself here a little bit, but I'm somebody, I hold on to the hope, man. I love every little time I talk to Sean and he's gonna do something for me, and then it doesn't happen. But it's okay. I'm super freaking excited when we do talk about it, and that's the thing. It's like if you're freaking pumped up about it every freaking day, then freaking jump in, man. I just need people to do what they want to do. Like find the passion and go in there and do it. And it starts with writing it down. If you don't write it down, you literally forget about it tomorrow. And it wasn't important enough to you.
Well, Andrew, the good news is that he kind of threw his wife under the bus on one of his investors in his wrap up. So when you talk about setting the bar low, man, you're teed up here to really close with some strong
you
stuff.
let those guys go first.
Yeah. Wow. Always
like
let Jesse go first, man. That's my new takeaway.
Well, we knew Andrew was going to go the longest, so that's why we wanted him to go.
Anyone says in life, when do you want to speak after Jesse?
You know, if I gave my final little piece here, it would be I'm gonna kind of tailor this into the brand side, in the personal brand side, and because there's all kinds of entrepreneur advice, and what these two guys gave are just dead on accurate. I mean, it's very, very, very good truth in it. I'm gonna give you 3 points if you want to build your brand of how you got to go build that brand and the steps to go build your personal brand. Before I give you the 3 steps, the first thing people struggle with is wanting this viral thing. You were kind of talking about it earlier. They're wanting this massive in gold. They're wanting this massive video that goes viral, and they're looking for the lottery ticket inside of building a brand, right? Jesse, you used the word earlier, sacrifice, and a lot of times you build that personal brand. There's that thing of sacrifice that we don't want to go through. And we're trying to play this easy game for it. So this is kind of the problem that people face. If I gave you the formula to how to solve that, it's very simple. It's what I call the 3 I's. It is inspire, impact, and influence. If you can do those 3 things with your personal brand, you will freaking explode. And breaking them down for you is very simple. Inspire just means Jesse was making the point, Brian made the point. It is that you have to do what you freaking love. If you live this life and you do not do what you love, you are missing out. Now, that does not mean that you can just go jump in and go do it without that sacrifice, without working that extra job, whatever it may be. But the first thing would be find what you love. We've all said it. Find that passion that drives you and keeps you up at night. Number 2, this is the part that people miss the most, Drew, is that we're all looking for 80 million followers, which is not impact. That's influence. Impact comes first. If you want to grow your brand, create impact. Impact is where you get one-on-one relationships that are nurtured and developed over time. It is what we all talk about at this table. It is where you give first and there is no ask. It is where you give, and all 3 of us right here know each other, and the things that we have done for each other where they have helped me and I have helped them, that's the impact that most brands miss out on. Is you're trying to go from this, let me copy someone's idea because I like it and I want 80 million followers because I'm a good dancer. Good luck on that, bro. Good freaking luck.
Yeah.
Do what inspires you in life, number 1. Number 2, impact those around you first in a very, very deep, meaningful way. When you impact people, you will then create the 3rd step, which is what most people are looking for, which is influence. Influence is where you got the 80 million people, but impact is what has to happen first to reach those 80 million people. And when you impact people, I'm going to give you a live example. Brian here, a lot of people don't know this, and I don't know if you want me to share this or not, but it's happening.
I don't know what you're saying, so go for it.
Brian works with a lot of, a handful, very select brands where he actually runs their social media for them. And we were doing some stuff together, just like, I'm not charging him. He's like, we're just helping each other out. The word that you use, collaboration. I mean, this is Brian. But what I was willing to do was go try to impact Brian's life, and he was willing to impact my life. But because of the impact, then comes the influence. And so I'm doing this sneaker show. Why? Because I freaking love sneakers. So it inspires me. So I do a sneaker show. I do what I love. I want impact. I'm making impact here. And then Brian reaches out to, I don't know, a dozen NBA players. And literally on the way here on the airplane, Brian's booking. Oh yeah, you got the yeah, you go. You got the sneakers, bro.
I'm just listening, man.
Yeah, just listening.
And hoping that maybe you don't have to send me a free pair just because
sponsor.
I'm wearing.
Yeah, just a tag.
As they should.
Just a post.
Right. Anyway, I'm stretching out. We've been talking for a while. You're compelling, man. You got my attention.
What drives me, man. And
I feel you.
Brian gets I think they have like 1.2 million subscribers. That's gonna go freaking post our stuff for free right now.
Yeah.
Then comes the influence. So again, it's inspire, impact, and influence, and you will grow that brand.
And I just want a free pair of sneakers from Saint Laurent out of that. It was all I was hoping for.
That's all he got out of all that, man.
You know, and
I want a pair of Jordans.
Yeah. I have those for you.
I know.
There you go. Hey guys, this is it's been great for me. So I know it's been great for everybody watching, and I know we're going to blast pieces back out all over your guys' social media as well and our own. So I think there'll be a lot more feedback coming from it. But for me, I want to say part of it was a walk down memory lane, because some of it hit on some things that I've been able to use myself. But man, there's so many other things that you guys brought up that are like a recharge for me. So I'm grateful that you guys took the time to come out here and do this. I'm excited to follow each of you even that much more going forward. Yeah. I think we should do it again. Maybe when it makes sense, and let's have a couple of ladies join us on the next one, some female entrepreneurs and brand builders as well, and we'll have either Dana or Adrian join us as well, and kind of grow this circle a little bit, because I think this is some really good stuff, and I think we're doing some great things. So I appreciate it, and I'm sure you guys have really sparked a lot of people today. You definitely sparked me.
Man,
it's been great.
It was a blast.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Drew.
Thanks, Drew.
All right. As Not Seen on TV, subscribe. Check us out at our YouTube page, youtube.com/As Not Seen on TV, and we'll have everyone's Instagram, all the socials up. And I had heard that Jessie is quite the TikTok dancer. So is that not where you were blowing up? And I heard you were auditioning for HGTV, a TikTok show now. Was that you said that you'd like to do that?
I don't know who said that, but okay.
But
we will try. Okay. Let's see how I do.
Give back the trophy. And we're out.